there, this is Alex with Inspiration Clothesline, and I'm super glad to be with you today looking at Unsinged, a creative retreat faith art box with a devotional by Erin Davis. We looked at Daniel chapter 3 and Matthew 27:11 through 56, and I was really struck by a particular quote in this devotional, which was, "Human perspective never tells the whole story." And so this first project I'm doing this month is just going to focus on that quote, thinking about Daniel and how their human perspective, or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were thrown into a fiery furnace by King Nebuchadnezzar and came out completely unsinged, unaffected, unharmed. It was amazing, and they did not have God's perspective. They only had the human perspective, but somehow they relied on him. So I decided that since I was just doing a quote, I would do a memory Dex card. So here I am just grabbing a blank one. This is a bit of a challenge for me because I don't usually make memory Dexes. So here I am grabbing the faith-filled downloadable printables that go with this kit from Creative Retreat. These are available for purchase, and I will put the link to those below, noting some of the things that I liked, the things I might want to use on this card. And those 3 pages are the downloadable printable to buy. These 2 are the freebie that Cece created, and you can access the free printables in the Creative Retreat Insider group on Facebook, which will also be linked down below. So don't miss the free ones. And if you're looking for something to add to this faith art box, it's a great idea to grab those devotional printables. I decided to use part of the freebie on the back of the memory Dex card because if you just print it at normal scale, it's like the perfect size. So I'm just going fast forward motion here as I fussy cut this word block. I know I'm also going to use that rescue story tab that came on the for purchase printable. And I also, while I was fussy cutting, started to meditate on the idea that God's perspective is different than ours, and that what we can imagine God would do is not what he would do. He would do so much more. That for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that they would have thought God would save them from a fiery furnace. I just can't imagine that their human perspective could have thought that up. I know mine wouldn't have. And sometimes I think the solutions I think God is going to provide are so much bigger than our brains can even wrap our heads around. And so this was a real encouragement to me to think about things in light of his perspective instead of just the one that I have as a human. And so what verse came to my mind was actually Ephesians 3:20, which is an extension verse. It's not one that was provided in the devotional, but it says, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us." And these men who were thrown into this fiery furnace and came out unsinged, their first names were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, were actually changed to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego by King Nebuchadnezzar. And so their whole lives were turned upside down by King Nebuchadnezzar. And I just think it's important to remember he used his power to use and abuse the people around him to kind of uplift his ego and his name instead of God's. And these men decided to worship God. And so that was honored by God's presence being near to them. And so you will see me with the stickers here. I'm going to create this memory Dex card to reflect these thoughts. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm flipping the card, that bubble that I fussy cut out from the printable, over, and I'm going to use some ink. I was going to use my blender, and then I just realized this inexpensive ink pad can just be used as a blender itself. So I put a little yellow, golden color on there, and I decided to brighten it up with a brighter yellow there. And then next I'm going to add a little bit of orange, and I used this distressed ink, so it was quite a little bit, this one was just the same inexpensive kind of pinkish color, and I really had to press it hard to get on there, but I wanted a little bit of the orange effect on the edges. And I'm only doing the outside of this card because I know that's all that's going to appear on the back, and I kind of like how the bubbles almost look like flames. And then here I am creating a little colored backdrop on the other side, where I'm going to do more sticker effects. And so first I did a little bit of the orange coral color, and then I grabbed a distress oxide ink And it really gave this kind of different effect, which I liked, a little bit more stark and kind of looked like flames. And I blended it in just to make sure that it wouldn't rub off on anything. And then I had a nice backdrop. For me, I always like to start with a backdrop color because it tells me where I want to build from. These Memory Dex cards, like I said, are an experiment for me. So I knew backdrop color was a good place to start. And I love how that's going to look on the backside with those little bits peeking out. Finally got that glued down after several attempts with my Mono Tombow glue. I'm running low, you can tell. And I will glue that on just so that the edges peek off. And then the other side is already kind of colored to match those edges. Line that up with the Memory Dex punch. And I own a punch, so I could have made this out of regular paper, but I just used a pre-punched card that came with my Memory Dex box. And I'm taping this tab in that I cut out from the digital download, and it says rescue story. And I love that the idea of a human perspective versus God's perspective, along with him being next to us, is part of our rescue story. That along through the trial, through the tribulation, he is next to us, and that ultimately it's a story of him rescuing us, and that his perspective is different than ours. So here I am, I popped back to the devotional to look at the quotes to be refreshed with what I wanted to get down. I looked up Ephesians 3:20 and read it in this particular version. I ended up going with a more traditional NIV version because I liked it better. But again, I wanted this idea of his perspective is so much more than we could ask or imagine. So here I found the verse, read it out loud. Before I began today, I really prayed because right now I'm going through some things with my kiddos, trying to understand them, trying to provide the help they need in school and around the house. And I feel like I'm in the mire and in the muck with being discouraged, not knowing what to do. And then when this quote popped out to me about his perspective is different than ours, I tried to remind myself of that. And when I opened in prayer today, I just said, Lord, make something stand out to me. Help me to know what you have for me today. And I feel like he was just saying, I'm near to you. I'm next to you. And so I decided to take this next to me sticker and I mounted it on the little label sticker that had a flame already on it. And it just creates kind of a three-dimensional layered effect. So that's there now, and I'm adding he is with the bubble alphas. And because the next to me is a little bit off center, I kind of have to fidget back and forth. I ended up kind of overlapping the circles, and I actually like how they look overlapped a little better. I feel like there's a lot of extra space around the letters, which is nice because it provides the pop of color. But this way, if I overlap them, it doesn't take up as much real estate. So I tucked the I behind next to me, and I ended up having to switch colors because I didn't have another S. Sometimes with alphas, you got to get creative. And then I moved the H and the E kind of over and overlapped them as well to match the kind of the layered effect of the is. And I really like how that's turning out. And so now I know I want to get the quote onto the page. So I decide I'm going to put the whole word perspective because that is the key word of this particular project. So I put out all the alphas for perspective, and they end up being a little spaced, a little funny. I end up going a little crooked. That is the non-perfectionist in me, is that I just go for it and wing it. I don't pre-line them up. And what I end up doing is actually removing a few and staggering them. And it kind of reminded me of like varying perspectives. So I kind of visually represented the idea of different perspectives by varying the level of the letters. So here, see, I move the P down and the R down and the next E down, and then I move the I and the T up, and it gives us kind of this wiggly, different perspective kind of word. I just handwrite in human and then never tells the whole story. So it reads, human perspective never tells the whole story. Then I grab a thinner black pen and I outline the sticker visual bubble there at the bottom and the actual whole word perspective. And I did this to tie the black ink I used for the calligraphy part to the stickers. Then it adds a little bit of black to outline them, and that kind of makes them pop and be more connected and tied together. So that concludes, besides adding a little enamel sticker, arrow sticker at the top and a date stamp on this side, which was the quote that I wanted to represent from the devotional. And then I'm going to flip over, and on the back side, I'm going to add a few stickers, the date and the scripture that I was meditating on, which is this Ephesians 3:20. And for me, keeping this side simple, the nice thing about this printable is it actually has, you can't see it very well, but maybe in some of the final images you'll be able to see it. It's got a faint little dots on the background. So it creates this extra little bit of detail that I just love. So first I used the numbers on the alpha stickers to add in the date, February 1st, 2020. And then I'm gonna pull out the themed sticker pad here, and I add a little pink heart to the black hearts that CC already included on this, which I love how that looks, to just add a little bit of color to the pre-drawn hearts. And then I decided to put fiery presence, because I would like the idea of thinking about the trials we go through, or this fiery furnace they were thrown into, as also being that his presence is fiery. And so I kind of played with those words a little. Wrote down the scripture, again, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. And I'm clinging to this scripture today as I pray for guidance. I pray for wisdom in our life with our kiddos, in our faith, in our family, and in our marriage, that God will just do so much more than we could ever imagine. And in the moments where I feel like we're in a fiery furnace, that instead we would remember that he is near to us, and it's his fiery presence that walks with us. So that's it for today. I am Alex of Pacific Northwest Bible Journaling, and this was a memory Dex card focusing on the Unsinged devotional by Erin Davis in February 2020's Creative Retreat Faith Art Box. Human perspective never tells the whole story. If you want to follow along with more process videos here on the Creative Retreat YouTube channel, be sure to like this video or subscribe to get notifications when more videos come out. You can also see links to all the products I've used below. I'd encourage you to take a look at the ink colors provided by Creative Retreat, as they have an awesome selection of pigment ink. I will be sure to provide the correct colors that coordinate with the kit down in the description. You can also find the link to the Creative Retreat Insider Group, or the link to purchase the downloadable printables for this month. Thanks for tuning in. This is Alex of PNW Bible Journaling here on the Creative Retreat YouTube channel.